So myth is sort of poetic metaphors.
I think so.
And legend is
myth
like...
can turn into religion,
right.
And it can turn into legend.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
A
myth can be systematized into a religion. You can actually.
There is a T-junction there somewhere.
And if you might offend a Christian if you said that the myth on which Christianity is built is, Garden of Eden, so on, because they might say, well, it's true. And then others will say, well, no, come on, face it, it's a myth. It's a story that is told to explain maybe why we sin and why we're aware of sin, why we have a moral sense. And Garden of Eden does that. Whereas a legend is
hang on a minute.
more...
Dare I pause Stephen Fry?
Yeah.
So the Old Testament is mythical and the New Testament is legendary.
I think that's a very, very excellent remark. Yes, absolutely.
When did you... not in some kind of vainglorious or self-possessed way. When did you first notice people listening to you, and then your turn of phrase, your lovely rhythm? Obviously, the tone came later as you were older.
Oh yes, when it was funny. That's basically it.
Right.
That's why so many of us start off in comedy, is because that's the first. I know it's a cliche, but it is the thing that makes you popular, and makes you popular and sort of more I used to invent ways of dealing with bullies and try and sell them to other children and other boys. I'd say, and because my most successful ways is a bully would come and they'd start to show, no, don't touch me, I'll get an erection. And and that is the most perfect solution to being bullied, because they immediately, oh God, Stephen, oh really, and suddenly they don't, and everyone laughs at them, and so you're suddenly down by law, as they used to say. You're okay. And so it was that. And so I'd amuse people with language and words and write sketches. We'd do these things called house suppers, which were, in the house in the evening. We'd do a sketch, and I'd steal from all Benny Hill and Morecambe and Wise, and I'd re-engineer them. And then Monty Python arrived when I was 12 or 13, and then that, of course, became that. And because everyone begins by stealing, that's the way. It's the same if you're playing the guitar. You do, Stairway to Heaven.
Well, you're stealing words from the first people who says those words?
Exactly. And then somehow what you steal becomes your own. You find your own voice, and that's really what you're asking, I suppose.
Frame.
Your own frame. And when I found mine, it was late, because I was screwed up by all kinds of other things. I was expelled from one school after another, and then I went to prison, and, I won't go over all that again. I'm sure I've had conversations with you about that. And Moab is my washpot. My marvellous autobiography is still very much on the shelves.
Flying off the shelves whilst also being on the shelves.
But no, it is, you almost believe that nature is not even-handed in the gifts that she gives to the brain, and some people, we all know them, they have music in them in a way that is simply awesome, and you look at them and you sort of look round the back of their head to see what extra bit they've got, that they can do the things they can, the way they can remember harmonies and reconstruct music, let alone play original and sing, and other people just draw with their hands, and you just go, wow.
With ease.
We don't notice that language is one that can also can develop gifts with.
Yeah, because we all think we can do it, and we can all do it.
Obviously, it's your profession. But it is like so much. It's driven, isn't it? That there's a drive behind it. There's an impulse, which is almost like a greed to. I mean, part of it, in my case, is to entertain, maybe to impress. I don't know. Maybe it is a show-offy thing. I was always called a show-off. Not always, but by a lot lot of school teachers. He's such a show-off.
Yeah, but it's a gift to show off.
Yes, it is.
Fine. Showing off is fine.
I was having a email communication with a wonderful man, Teller, who's the silent one in Penn and Teller, the magicians, and we were talking about why it is that some people reject magic. And why certain people are so fond of it, why so many film directors were magicians when they were young. They used to practice it. People like Orson Welles, J.J. Abrams, Guillermo del Toro, Christopher Nolan, they all loved magic. And saying that one of the reasons people don't like it is partly because it's they think, oh, he's sitting alone at home trying to fool people. He can't, they're lonely, sad people, and so they're trying to manipulate coins and cards and manipulate audiences. But then It's also then people that's usually bullies who think that, because bullies don't like seeing someone do something they can't explain. They're the kind who grab a magician and pull up their sleeve and look under the table and say, "No, it's just a trick," and
it's just a trick that I can't do.
I can't do, and I don't understand how it's done.
Yeah.
But then there are the kind who just think, what's so marvelous about magic and about film directing is you take ordinary situations, ordinary things, coins, cards, people, in an ordinary situation, and you make a story out of it, a story that is extraordinary, that you thought these were just ordinary objects, but they're not. Yeah. In the same way as scientists looking in a microscope can tell you that isn't ordinary. Look what's going on deep inside it.
Ready, steady, cook.
Yes,
it's the same thing, isn't it?
It is.
I'll always go back to rinse and repeat and ready, steady, cook.
Yeah.
But we are speaking the same language.
We are, absolutely.
You distill, I dilute. That's where we are, Stephen. Steve, we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
Stephen Fry, Odyssey, Can a Hero Find His Way Home? This is the hero's journey, the ultimate hero's journey. It's the fourth pillar in the telling of the whole of the Greek myths. This is you. This is your finish line as well.
It is. I've got home myself.
So what are you going to do next?
Well, it's a very good point. I mean, I have considered, I do love the Arthurian legends. If I wanted to retell something, then the story of Arthur and his knights is a very good story, and it's a very different sort of thing. It's not quite a myth, it's a legend. One would have to come back another time to talk about the difference.
We've got a minute. What's the difference between a myth and a legend?
Well, a
Which
myth,
came first?
if we're going to be quick, a myth is a public dream.
Right.
And a legend is a story constructed out of truths in a real place and a real time that comes together. It might have elements of the superstitious, but there is somehow something rooted in a land and a place that is stronger and more recent, I think. I think that's the closest I can come. And then there's lore and fairy tale. I don't know if it's true.
So myth is sort of poetic metaphors.
I think so.
And legend is
myth
like...
can turn into religion,
right,
and it can turn into legend,
right,
if you know what I mean.
Oh,
a myth can be systematized into a religion. You can actually...
There is a T-junction there somewhere.
And if you might offend a Christian if you said that the myth on which Christianity is built is, Garden of Eden, because they might say, well, it's true. And then others will say, well, no, come on, face it, it's a myth. It's a story that is told to explain maybe why we sin and why we're aware of sin, why we have a moral sense. And Garden of Eden does that. Whereas a legend is...
Well, hang on a minute.
More,
Dare I pause Stephen Fry?
Yeah.
So the Old Testament is mythical and the New Testament is legendary.
I think that's a very, very excellent remark. Yes, absolutely.
Because I really like the New Testament, but I can't get on with the Old Testament.
Yeah, yes, the vengefulness and so on.
I really loved it. I read the New Testament for pleasure.
I'll finish with a good Oscar Wilde story then. When he was a student at Oxford. As you know, the New Testament is entirely written in Greek, not in Aramaic or Hebrew. It was entirely written in Greek. And so, because he was doing the classics, one of the things in a live examination, which they call a viva, he had to show that he was familiar with New Testament Greek, which is more modern Greek than the Greek of Plato and Aristotle and so on. So he was handed a New Testament, open more or less at random, at the Passion and Crucifixion of Christ, and asked to translate at sight. And he was a very, very fine classicist, Wilde, so he fluently just translated. They said, thank you, Mr. Wilde, very good. And he carried on translating. They said, Mr. Wilde, thank you, that's enough. And he carried on, Mr. Wilde, will you stop? He said, oh, please let me go on. I'm dying to find how it all turns out.
Is he your favourite person ever?
Oh, yes.
By miles?
By a long way, I think.
Well, did you see that film where Rupert Everett played him?
I did, yes.
How good is that?
I really loved it.
Do you like Rupert?
I like Rupert so much.
I could listen to him all day.
He's fabulous, isn't
he? Have you and he ever have you ever been out for dinner and things?
We have, yes.
What's that like?
Oh, he's terrific. He's
Can you
such
imagine being
fun.
a fly on the wall
He's
there?
Delightful.
How naughty did you get with the chat?
But he's naughty, and also I think that's why he's so loved by people like you and me. Is he's vulnerable, he's fragile,
oh gosh, that's
and
what
he
gives
shows
me
that
strength.
so sweetly. Exactly.
You can't. His autobiography is one of the best books.
Aren't they beautifully written?
Yeah,
amazing. And if you ever get a chance, it's online. Listen to his Desert Island Discs.
Yeah,
it's
I've heard
beautiful.
That, yeah.